It starts quietly. You don't even notice it at first. Maybe you're in your garden with a cup of coffee in the morning, and you see a little sparrow land on the fence. It tilts its head. It looks at you with a sharp, black eye. It's a simple, everyday moment. We've seen it 1,000 times. But what if I told you that you are looking at a dinosaur? Not a descendant of a dinosaur. Not something like a dinosaur, but a true, living, breathing dinosaur. It sounds strange, I know, because the dinosaurs we remember, they were different. If you're like me, you grew up with a very clear picture of a dinosaur. They were giant. They were scaly, like lizards or crocodiles. They were green or gray or brown. They were monsters. Amazing, awe-inspiring monsters from a lost world. We saw them in museums, huge skeletons that towered over us. We saw them in books, brought to life in beautiful but probably very wrong paintings. And of course, we saw them in the movies. Giant, roaring creatures shaking the ground with every step. That was the world of dinosaurs we all knew and loved. A world of giants. A world that ended in fire and ash 66 million years ago. The story we thought was over. But a good story always has a secret. And this secret began to surface a long time ago, back in the 1860s in Germany. Quarry workers found a fossil unlike any other. It was a small creature about the size of a crow. It had the skeleton of a small dinosaur, sharp teeth in its snout, a long bony tail. But pressed into the limestone, surrounding the bones, was a perfect impression of feathers. Feathers on its arms, its legs, its tail. They called it Archaeopteryx. It was a puzzle, a creature caught between two worlds. Was it a bird? Was it a dinosaur? For over 100 years, it was mostly seen as a curiosity. A strange, early bird that shared some features with dinosaurs. It was a hint, a whisper of a much bigger story. But it was just one fossil. It wasn't enough to change the world. And then, in the 1990s, everything changed. In a part of northeastern China called Liaoning Province, farmers digging in the fields began to find the most incredible fossils we have ever seen. The ground there is made of extremely fine volcanic ash from ancient eruptions that buried whole ecosystems in an instant. It preserved not just bones, but the soft parts of animals, fin, guts, and feathers. Suddenly, it wasn't just Archaeopteryx. It was dinosaur after dinosaur, of all different shapes and sizes, covered in feathers. Not the big, famous ones like T-Rex or Triceratops. These were smaller, two-legged predators. The very family of dinosaurs that scientists had long suspected were the ancestors of birds. And here was the proof, etched in stone. One of the first was called Sinosauropteryx. It was small, maybe the size of a turkey, with a very long tail. And it was covered in a soft, downy fuzz. Simple, primitive feathers. They weren't for flight. They were probably for keeping warm, just like the down on a baby chick today. For the first time, we could see the color of a dinosaur. The fossil was so well preserved that scientists could study the pigment cells. They discovered that Sinosauropteryx had a reddish-brown color with a striped, raccoon-like tail. This wasn't a dull, gray monster. This was a living, breathing animal with colors for camouflage or maybe to show off to a mate. It was the beginning of a revolution. And this revolution changes everything, even our most famous villains. Think of the Velociraptor. Thanks to the movies, we picture a clever, scaly creature about the size of a man. The reality? Well, the real Velociraptor was much smaller, about the size of a big chicken. And we now know, without any doubt, that it was covered in feathers. It had large, complex feathers on its arms, forming wings. It couldn't fly. Its body was too heavy, its arms too short. So why have wings if you can't fly? Well, think of a peacock. It has huge feathers to show off. Maybe Velociraptor did the same. Or maybe it used its wings for balance when running, like an ostrich. Or perhaps, most touchingly, it used them to cover its eggs in the nest, protecting its young from the elements. This fierce predator was also apparent. And the more we looked, the more connections we found. It wasn't just the feathers. It was their bones. Many of these dinosaurs had hollow bones, just like birds, to make them lighter. They had wishbones. They had hips that were shaped more like a bird than a lizard. We even found fossils of dinosaurs sleeping in a curled-up position, tucking their heads under their arms, a posture every bird owner will recognize. They weren't just big reptiles. They were active, warm-blooded, and surprisingly bird-like in almost every way. It's not so much that dinosaurs evolved into birds. It's more that birds are a type of dinosaur, a small, feathered branch of the family tree that learned to fly. And that is the key. When the great asteroid hit the Earth 66 million years ago, the world changed forever. The giant dinosaurs, the ones that needed so much food, they couldn't survive. They disappeared. But some of the small, feathered ones did. Maybe because they were small and needed less food. Maybe because they could eat seeds and insects, things that were still around after the disaster. And maybe because their feathers kept them warm in the dark, cold world that followed. They were the survivors. And in the millions of years that followed, they evolved into the 10,000 different species of birds we know today. From the ostrich to the hummingbird. From the eagle to the penguin. Which brings us back to the garden. Back to that little sparrow on the fence. Look at it again. Look at the way it moves, that quick, jerky motion. Look at its feet, scaly, just like the old drawings of its ancestors. Listen to its song. It is a direct, unbroken link to the Age of Dinosaurs. That little bird carries the legacy of the Velociraptor in its bones and the warmth of Sinosauropteryx in its feathers. It is a messenger from a lost world, here to remind us that history is never truly gone. It's just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to look close enough to see it.